Welcome to Openly Spoken, the podcast to help you show up, speak out, and be seen within your relationships, your work, and most importantly, with the relationship with yourself. In this podcast, we talk about all things self-love, relationships, sexuality, spirituality, and more. Hi, I'm your host, Celia Antonio, and I'm a women's sexuality and self-love coach, a mindfulness expert, and your cheerleader for your most grounded and expansive self-expression. You can connect with me on Instagram at self-expressedbabe, and for all of my guest episodes, there will always be links in the show notes so that you can find them online. I give my deepest thanks to you for being here and spending your precious time with me today. Now let's begin our journey. Today's guest is Jennie Jeutcher, and Jennie is a relationship coach for women in midlife. She helps them transform their relationship to alcohol to create more intimacy in their partnerships, structure in their home life, and well-being in their bodies. Thank you for joining us today, Jennie.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And today we're going to talk a little bit about alcohol and alcohol use, and also like a little bit about relationships. And I think the way we first connected, you talked about, I think we talked about how like common it is to use alcohol and how it's not so common to live sober, curious, or live like a sober life. Like people are like, why aren't you drinking? Are you pregnant? Like it's so normalized.
Yeah,
So yeah. So I'm excited about this conversation.
me too. It's my favorite thing to talk about, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. I would love to know if maybe you want to start with like sharing a little bit about you and your story and how you got to this point.
Yeah, thank you. I'd love to. So I was in the alcohol industry for about 14 years, actually. So I was a sales rep for 11 years and then a district manager for almost three. And I developed like not a drinking problem,
Mm-hmm.
but a drinking habit, I would say. Like
Mm-hmm.
I didn't, like, when I would look at like my drinking over the course of my life, like I had periods, of course, like in college, like, oh, I'm going to binge on this $10 gallon of shitty vodka. Can we cuss here?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
this okay? This shitty vodka and then feel hungover. Um, and then, probably making poor decisions with dating
Mm.
experiences because
Mm-hmm.
you're under the influence of alcohol and there was all that. And then in my work environment, it's you're kind of like when you're a fish in water, you don't know you're in water,
Mm.
I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So like I would look at how much I drank, which would be like 3 or 4 nights a week, maybe like a
Mm-hmm.
couple glasses of wine. And because I was always having that litmus test of, am I hungover the next day? And the answer being
Uh,
no, because I have 2 glasses of wine, like I would think like this is not a problem.
mm.
But I wasn't actually noticing how negative my brain was, how like
Mm.
like dampened my body felt,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't until I started to get into coaching and I was actually in a program and they had like a stop over drinking program, but I was like, over drinking? Like what even is that? What even
Uh-huh.
is that? And I remember going through the certification actually, because I had been in the program. I was like, I'm going to go get certified. And I was receiving some feedback from the coach on my coaching. And it was such an automatic habit that I didn't even realize this was happening. But I was having an activation, like from being criticized. Like my brain was hearing me get criticized. And I was like, I'm going to go.
Mm. From the feedback.
Yeah, from the
Mm-hmm.
feedback, like
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't receiving the feedback in a constructive way.
Yeah.
And my response was to go have a glass of wine on Monday, and my boundary had always been like, well, I don't have wine on Monday, like I don't drink Monday,
Mm.
Tuesday, or Wednesday, it's like I always have those boundaries for myself. And I had this glass of wine on Monday and I was sitting there like drinking by myself, and it was just like one glass that I had, right? But
Mm-hmm.
the purpose was to calm me. And
Mm.
so
Yeah.
when I was listening to this over drinking program part of like it really like it brought a bright light into my own use of alcohol. And
Mm-hmm.
what I had always considered myself to be like, I drank way less than most people I knew.
Yeah.
And yet here I was using it as a tool to control how I felt.
Mm.
And it just became this aha moment where I was like, I don't want this.
Yeah.
I don't want to use alcohol to control how I feel. I want to, even if I don't know how to feel how I feel in the best way, like I at least want to not be using this as my tool. And so I took alcohol out for 105 days, and I was still working in the alcohol industry at this point.
Oh, wow.
I remember like, and this is something I say to my in my marketing a lot, like your brain is going to tell you all the reasons you can't take it out, but I took alcohol out for 105 days while I was in the alcohol industry. You know, I'm sober and my husband owns a bar. So like we always get to choose, you know, we get to
Yeah.
choose the reality that we have in this relationship with alcohol, and we have to call out our lies.
Yeah.
So that was what got me super interested in looking at my relationship with alcohol. I spent 5 years being in the sober curious space, like having periods of taking it out for a long time and then having like just, you know, planned drinking. And it wasn't until March of this year that I decided like I wanted to be completely sober.
Mm-hmm.
And even then I was like, I don't know if I'm completely decided. I just knew I wasn't drinking, you know, like I wasn't
Yeah.
deciding that sober was even the word for me. I just
Mm.
knew like, I just wasn't going to drink.
Yeah.
Like there was still like that open door in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And then something happened like at the 6 month mark where it's like, no, this is who you are. Like this is now part of your identity. And it's like, it's so awesome. So
Yeah.
my story with alcohol, and there's lots of highlights and lowlights that we could probably get into, but we know.
Yeah. Well, I'm celebrating you from going from having this habit that you weren't really conscious of
Yeah.
to not drinking at all now.
Yeah.
That's
Thank you.
big. That's huge.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, you're welcome. And some of the things I heard you say that stood out to me is that one of the things was like this litmus test of I'm not hungover the next day, so it's fine. And
Hmm.
I'm drinking less than the people around me, so it's
Yeah.
fine. And
Yes.
what else stood out to me was what you said about choice. Um,
Hmm.
because I think because alcohol is so common, um, people think they have to do it
Yeah.
to socialize. Like, you go to a holiday party, you assume that you have to
Yes.
and because it's so normalized, people look at you weird when you don't. Like, I've experienced that myself. Like, I used to live in New York City, and I remember I went to a birthday party, and at this time they were starting to have kombucha on tap at bars, and I'm like, yes, I don't have to drink, because for me, alcohol, like, I like it. I'm not sober. I do like wine sometimes,
Yeah.
but if I drink like a drink, like a hard drink, like something with vodka or something like that, my body does not feel good at all. My
Yeah.
body does not like it. But in the past, I've definitely drank it anyways because I'm
Mm.
out socializing and that quote unquote, that's what you do.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so
It's
I had kombucha at this party and everyone's like, what are you drinking? Kombucha?
yeah.
But if you're at this point where you love yourself and you've got you and you're like secure in yourself, you get that power of choice back and you can
Yeah.
make that decision without making it mean something about you, like something bad about you, even if
Yeah.
other people judge you.
Yeah. And I think that that's a really normal thing too that you go through when you're making this decision. I have a couple clients right now too that was their fear. Like, you know, I'm deciding to not drink because when I work with my clients, like it's 90 days minimum
Hmm.
alcohol free. Like that's part of my process, 90 days at a
Awesome.
minimum. Because it takes
Yeah.
just that long to even like get our dopamine regulated and to really
Yeah.
feel how good you feel not consuming alcohol on a regular basis. And the fear is like what the other people will think I have a problem.
Mm.
so interesting
Oh,
too.
because you're like, I'm sober, and then they're like, oh, if they're sober, that means they're an alcoholic. Do you mean that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah, I've never
Yeah.
thought about that.
Yeah. And I think like, alcoholism, they don't even necessarily use that word anymore. It's like alcohol use disorder, and it's on a spectrum.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
think that a majority of drinkers are on the spectrum somewhere, with it being
Mm-hmm.
green, like there's not like there's not flags, there's not, but then yellow and red,
Yeah.
and like you get to the red, it's like they're saying like you're someone who should never touch alcohol again, and I was never at red. I honestly don't even feel like at times in my life I was even in the yellow.
Mm-hmm.
But I also just think it's so much easier to just not drink it. For me, it's so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
And something that you were mentioning earlier about like the taste of it, like you don't like it. The further away you get from consuming alcohol, the less you think it tastes good because it will
Mm.
actually just taste like burning.
That makes sense. You're like
You're like,
desensitized to it if you're constantly consuming it.
yes. And like when I would go for periods of not having it and then try like a glass of wine,
Mm-hmm.
all I tasted was burning. Because that's
No
actually what it's
flavor, just
doing.
burning.
It's like this just tastes like I feel like Butters or from the South Park. Do you remember like it tastes
Uh-huh.
like really kind of funny character, but I'm like that's what it tastes like burning, you know?
That's so funny.
Because it's like what we don't want to say is that like and say like I am consuming a toxin, like I'm actually consuming a
Yeah.
poison. And
Yeah.
this is what it feels like. And like actually like when your body is getting drunk, that's what your body's experiencing is it's being poisoned. The
Yeah. That's
effects of
true.
being drunk are actually the effects of your body responding to it being poisoned.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not sexy to put on a bar. That's not sexy to like put on a glass of like a back of a wine bottle,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But that is the reality, But we take. I got a Diet Coke here. Is there poison there? I don't know. It's like we live in a toxic world.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Um, how do you think that, I mean, I'm sure there's many ways, but I'd love to know like how you think that the alcohol use, whether it's a habit or no matter where it is on the spectrum, um, how do you think that affects someone's relationship with their body and their body sensations and like knowing their body and advocating for their body? Because that's where all the things that you work with people with, like intimacy and having a closer relationship or a closer marriage. I was just looking around at your Instagram right before this call, and I saw one post ended with like, fall in love with, if you want to fall in love with your husband again, follow me.
Yeah.
So I feel like all of that starts with your internal world.
Yeah.
And I would love to know how you have found that alcohol affects that or changes that. And then how
Um,
taking it away transforms that.
yeah. Well, I think one, we physically alcohol numbs sensation,
Mm,
right? So even though what it does in our mental perception of like desire, and if we're just talking like being intimate and like sexual stuff, like with your partner or with anybody, it's like we think that we're more turned on, but
mm.
physically we're actually not.
Ah, that's interesting.
So
Yeah.
it actually makes things drier,
Oh,
and it's a like a ruse,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it makes you think that your desire is heightened, but your body is actually not responsive. So there's like a disconnect,
Mm-hmm.
right? And my experience was like I would want to do this sexy, fun stuff with my husband. I would want to be like more free in the bed and say the things that I wanted to say, ask for the things that I wanted. And when I drank, and this was not necessarily like, because we've been together 14 years, so it's not necessarily like in the past like 5, 6 years or whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
definitely in the beginning, I thought I needed alcohol to unleash myself.
Mm. That's
Like I
relatable. Yeah.
Yeah, I was using alcohol to not feel shame around my own sexual desires and experience in my body. I would use it to even like force myself to be someone I wasn't in bed.
Yeah. That's
You
so
know, like, oh,
relatable.
I
Yeah.
think he's gonna like this. And this is definitely more in the beginning of our relationship. Like, I think he's gonna like this more. So I'm gonna pretend I'm this person in bed
Yeah.
because I'm uninhibited.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is that you don't actually get to create the cellular memories of these experiences
Mm.
because you dampen. It's like you've taken a wet cloth and put it over every cell that is like trying to experience itself inside of you and create an experience for you. And you're saying, no, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to put this outer layer of like this fakeness,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and then your body doesn't get to memorize it. Your body doesn't get to create like the memory or the safety or the trust.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying all this, and I'm also I'm also not saying, and it's bad that you're doing this. I'm saying it's not helpful, most likely for what you want long term,
Yeah.
and it's understandable because of conditioning that we have and insecurities that we have. It's like I can accept like this, if yes, this is my reality, this is how I've been conditioned, and I don't want to continue to use something to make myself be someone I'm not.
Yeah.
Let me just go through the more natural, organic, and maybe slower experience of getting to know somebody and getting to know myself
Mm-hmm.
instead of hijacking it all the time with
Mm-hmm.
alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
It's like an intimacy hijacker. It's like trying
Yeah.
to putting fast forward on real intimacy. And that's why it's like doesn't ever feel like you're really connecting.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because it gets in the way of truth. And
Yeah.
yeah. And what you said is so relatable because in our society, like sexuality is definitely something that is shamed, especially for women.
Mhm.
Like men are allowed to go fuck bitches or like whatever they say. But like women are not given that same freedom to just be
Yeah.
themselves as sexual beings. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, that's so relatable that alcohol would be this way to be unleashed. I think so many
Yeah.
people can relate to that. I can relate to that myself.
And even
And
like saying like, oh, I'm gonna go ahead and prescribe myself this porn version of who I think my partner wants me to be,
mm, mm-hmm.
opposed to like being this more like flower goddess that I actually feel like I am.
Yeah.
Like I look back, I'm like, oh, Jenny.
Yeah. Yeah. And then not just with sexuality, like there are also other emotions that women are usually not given space for, like being angry, for example.
Yes.
So I would love to know, like, since you work with women in midlife, I would love to know, like, what do you think is unique about the experience for women, and then also like for women specifically in midlife, because there's also extra like transitions you're going through. Maybe someone in midlife is dealing with sending their kids off to college. Maybe someone in midlife is starting to experience like perimenopause or menopause, or
Hmm.
yeah, there's like so many things that start to shift and change. So I would love
Yeah.
to know about that.
I'm just gonna get clear in your question. Are you saying what do I think the experience is for taking alcohol out or changing the relationship with alcohol for women in midlife?
Yeah, changing it specifically
Yeah.
for women in midlife. Like, what is unique about the experience for women in midlife with alcohol?
And I definitely can't speak for like all experiences, but I can say because we all have we might have kids, we might not have kids, we're going through menopause at different stages. But
Mm-hmm.
I would say like in generalities, you're at that point, just like assume that like I'm speaking to someone who has a lot of the same things as me. Like you're dealing
Mm-hmm.
with two working parent households, you're dealing with, you know, more involvement in different types of schooling activities. So there tends to be like this Tetris that you're constantly doing within your house to keep up with, you know, what is the demands of having kids, having a job, having a partner, like keeping the house clean. So there's a certain level of demand. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's this like I feel like there's the opportunity for like a boredom to come
Mm.
in your
Yeah.
partnership. I feel like if you haven't created the space for you and your partner to grow differently together, there's the opportunity to grow apart. And
Mm.
there's usually the I would say like the opportunity for um, the stress of the kids and raising kids to create this tension in the relationship that if it goes unrepaired and unnoticed for so long, you then have this like deeper separation, and
Mm.
also this, well, I can't divorce because I don't want to mess up the family, you know, or like I
Mm.
don't want to, I'll divorce when the kids are gone. So then there's like this could be this like dissatisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
There's your body changing because your
Mm-hmm.
hormones are changing. And what alcohol does is it can actually tell you everything's okay when it's not okay.
That makes sense. Yeah.
You know, it's like, do you actually need to change your job? Do
Mm.
you actually need to change your lifestyle? Are you living a lifestyle that is unsustainable for the well being of you and your partner and your marriage and your family?
Mm.
And I think that alcohol, like, no matter if it's midlife or you're young or you're older, the opportunity is to lie,
Mm. Wow. Yeah.
you know,
To lie to yourself.
to lie to yourself because you
Yeah.
can say how I am feeling isn't, you can just brush it off,
Yeah.
or you can use it like, I'm just going to get through,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So I think every stage of life, there's the opportunity to not be in this truthful honesty of like what's happening for you
Mm-hmm.
emotionally, physically, circumstantially. And alcohol is feels like a very easy tool,
Mm.
you know? Like
Mm-hmm.
and I do say like I don't think a lot of people have tools, you know, like
Yeah,
or
that's
they
probably why they're reaching for alcohol.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to say too, it's like it's not like oh everyone's so sad and they're only drinking because they're sad. I think there can just be like people are drinking because they're happy too,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I think like in midlife, it at this point it's probably become such an automatic habit
Yeah.
that you might not like you might be missing these polarity experiences on either side, like this like go into like the deepest pains of your heart while
Yeah.
also opening up space for like this ecstatic joy that
Yeah.
like in midlife, like because you're there, it is a time where you get to like know yourself differently. There's just
Mm.
things that happen in your 40s you're like, oh my god, I don't give a fuck about that anymore. Oh my god, why do I care about that? And I think when you keep alcohol as a habit, it keeps you in this very narrow lane,
Mm.
as opposed to like, now let's really expand to I'm willing to feel the depths of pain and like the heights of like joy,
Mm.
you
Yeah.
know? And I just think like I want to be available for that,
Mm-hmm.
for all of it. And so in midlife, I think like this is the perfect time. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it's the perfect time to change this and to say like, okay, now I want to 100% focus on my health and get into the sexiest shape I've ever been in. Like I want to be the impossible for people. Like I just think in my 40s, I just keep getting hotter. You know, like how wonderful for that. For like for all women to be able to experience that. My
Yeah.
relationship just keeps getting hotter.
Yeah.
You know, like we like, and I want that for women in midlife
Mm-hmm.
because when the kids go, assuming like they have kids,
Mm-hmm.
I want you so set up for like more expansion,
Yeah.
not like, oh, fuck,
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, I love that because I'm sure that's like a huge identity crisis of like if I don't have my kids to take care of, Now, what do I do? And since you just said that in my 40s I keep getting hotter, I just want to voice that you are gorgeous.
Thank you.
So her methods work.
Also Botox, guys, okay? Botox sobriety and weight training.
Yeah. And also, like when you start hitting that age as well, another thing in media that's so normalized besides alcohol is that like youngness equals beautiful. And
Mm,
so I can only imagine being midlife as a woman, because I don't think, at least in, Hollywood, when a man is older, he's like celebrated and seen as like hot and stuff. Like for example, Pedro Pascal,
mm-hmm.
he's gorgeous. Um,
Yeah.
but a woman at the same age with gray hair, not coloring their hair, is not celebrated in Hollywood. So there's
Yeah.
kind of this probably narrative of like my life is over now, like it's done.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that there's this, and I say this a lot in my marketing, like feeling sexy,
Hmm.
like that I really like I've looked at different women of different sizes and ages and men the same way, like, and like, God, like this individual is so sexy, and it's an energy that they,
Yes. Yeah.
like it's such an energy, and it really
Yeah.
is, it's like an embodiment,
Yeah. It
you
totally
know?
is. Hmm.
And so I think at any age and, size and whatever is going on, like there's an embodiment that happens when a woman is feeling certain,
Mm.
she's
Yeah.
feeling sexy. And it is my belief that alcohol doesn't allow us to tap into the depths of that.
Yes. Yeah.
Alcohol as a habit, not alcohol as a celebration, not alcohol as like, here's an exclamation point to the
Yeah.
sentence, like, but like if you have a sentence with all exclamation points, it reads crazy.
Yeah.
Like, how can we incorporate, or if you choose to keep it in as an exclamation point, make it make sense,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
I love that
To,
exclamation point
yes.
analogy. And I love
Yeah.
what you said earlier that you kind of just touched on now, of like when you don't have alcohol as this kind of like barrier of what's true and the truth of your feelings, then you're able to go you're able to experience this more wider spectrum of like the deepest pain and also the most expansive like bliss and love.
Yes.
Um, and I think those are kind of like, because it's like a polarity thing here, I feel like you have to be willing to face that pain in order to, like, in the journey of feeling that pain, that bliss and love that's deeper than you ever experienced before is what's the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes. And even in my own processes and like taking myself into like deeper experiences of like heartbreak and
Mm.
like past things from my past, like that that bliss and love comes right after the pain. It's
Yeah,
like
it
the
really
one-time
does.
process. It's like right there,
Yeah.
you know? And that has been profound to experience.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been profound to experience that like that experience is available whenever I want it. You
Yeah.
know, I'm not trying to create it every day. I'm not trying to create that heightened experience because I don't need it. Because that means like I'm like, I hate how I feel. It's like I
Mm.
don't need that. Like I feel like with alcohol, when we get into the habit, a lot of times we're just unconsciously trying to keep like maintain this level
Mm-hmm.
that just isn't sustainable.
Yeah, we're not allowing things to ebb and flow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very much like kind of resisting nature, because in nature, there's winter and there's
Yeah.
fall, spring, summer. And even what you said about just now about like right after the pain is where the bliss is. It's almost like right after the coldest winter and it's just so
Yeah.
freezing. That's when new flowers pop up right after that.
Yes. Yeah. I think there's a grand design in that
Yeah.
architecture.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So if anyone is listening to this and they're like, oh, I use alcohol as a habit, and they
Hmm.
are wanting to take like the first step to be able to feel that wide spectrum of emotion while also being resourced, what would you suggest?
Yeah. So one way that I've worked with clients in the past, like if they don't want to take it out completely, especially not at first,
Mm-hmm.
is to create a drink plan for
Hmm.
yourself.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
what you would do is you would think about ahead of the week, like, what am I doing this week and how much do I want to drink and with who and why do I want to drink? And you would write it all out. So you're being very intentional. And this does a couple of things. So, like, one, it helps to build self integrity and self trust
Mm-hmm.
because I tell them, like, put down exactly how much you're going to drink. If you're going to drink a bottle of wine, I want you to put that you're going to drink a bottle because your brain will still want you to drink a bottle and a half, you know?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
drink exactly what you say you're going to drink and following through with that. And then just even bringing awareness to like how you're feeling before and after is so powerful.
Yeah.
And in this process, especially because essentially what we're doing is we're decreasing every single week. And this varies depending on how much someone is drinking right now. But then those nights that you're not drinking, you're with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Or that weekend that you say, I'm going to have my first alcohol free weekend, you might actually not feel things,
Mm.
because a lot of times the habit is to actually just resist. So what most people might feel is like a tension,
Mm.
you know? And so so that first occurrence of like, oh, I feel tense in my body because there is a wanting and not having experience.
Mm.
Like I'm wanting to have a drink and I'm not having it. And this is true for people who don't consider themselves alcoholics because we have mental cravings. And
Mm-hmm.
that mental craving creates desire and then not having desire. So,
Mm.
like, the first thing that someone could expect and a way to move through that is just, oh, I'm just going to expect I won't feel good. I'm just going to
Mm.
expect tension and maybe like a little bit of anxiety. And that's totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
So just this one, I would say, expectation that it won't feel good in your body, no matter how much you've been drinking in the past. Like it most likely won't feel good in your body because you're changing a habit. So that expectation, and then as much as possible, just a dropping in to like the acceptance of that.
Mm. The acceptance of it feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
uncomfortable,
Yeah.
you know. And then I would invite anyone to like maybe even Google like meditative practices or ways to drop into your body. I know like with you and I with our coaching practices, like we know
Mm-hmm.
how to do that. So if you work with a coach or you work with a somatic coach or a therapist, or even like everything's available online.
Mm-hmm.
Like you really truly can like find all the resources for free. You could even probably watch someone teaching something for free on Google and learn how to like drop into those sensations in your body. But the process is really learning how to be with the different intensity sensations of wanting and not having, which I
Mm.
think is the first layer of like deconditioning, like how much you want alcohol. And
Mm-hmm.
then the second layer is like, what were these emotions that you didn't want to feel in the first place?
Yeah. And
Then
that's
they're
like
like,
what'd you say? I didn't hear you.
then they're like kind of like coming up like, we okay, now it's our turn.
Hey. Hey girl, we've been waiting for you.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I think will probably scare a lot of people. Like, oh, I don't want to do that. So,
Yeah.
how would you communicate that that is worth it?
The experience of changing your relationship with alcohol.
The experience of changing your relationship with alcohol and all those emotions that you were trying to avoid coming up, bubbling up to the surface.
Yeah, because we do things in life and we don't do things in life because of how we want to feel and how we don't want to feel.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're never scared of how you'll feel, imagine what things you will do or be open to experiencing in your life.
Mm.
Imagine like if you're not scared to feel, what changes in the decisions that you make for the life that you want,
Yeah, I love that.
you know.
That sounds
So I think it's
very
just
liberating.
yeah, I think it is. And it's not like it's okay, here's this work and now I'm done. Like I continue to find new spaces in myself of like, oh, this emotion I don't like. This emotion I don't like. But it also too like I don't want to say like, oh, you're gonna have all these crazy emotions you're gonna have to feel. Some of them can be so subtle, like just like insecurity at a
Mm-hmm.
party, or
Mm-hmm.
like not feeling as confident at a
Mm-hmm.
party, or just feeling bored on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Like some of these aren't like these big, huge, dramatic emotions. Some of these are just like really simple human experiences
Mm-hmm.
that you just then get to be a part of.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to also know then I think it would be helpful for people to know as those emotions have come up for you and as you've embraced, all these uncomfortable emotions, what are maybe a few cool things that have resulted out of you feeling those emotions and like embracing it and making peace with them?
Yeah. Well, the first time I took alcohol out for 105 days, I got so much clarity about what I wanted in my life. And so
Mm-hmm.
I left my career of 14 years
Oh, wow.
to be a coach full time. I'm not saying that it was the most graceful way to do it. Like we did it in the middle of a pandemic, like so, and then we moved, so, but you know, it has opened me up to taking risks and
Mm.
trusting in my own resiliency.
Trusting your
So,
own resiliency. I love that.
like, I'm not scared of shit. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I have my own back. Like, my mom passed away earlier this year, and that was actually when I decided, like,
Mm.
I want to take alcohol completely because I didn't want to miss,
Mm.
like, the teachings of grief.
Yeah.
Like how beautiful grief has been informing me. And I think grief is one of those emotions that people are very scared of feeling. Like people were
Yeah.
very scared of loss. That's why we try to control things so much. We're so scared of loss. But when you say like that doesn't scare me because I don't see anything as just being bad. I can always see this like, and it's not being Pollyanna, it's literally actually being whole.
Yeah.
I'm not only focusing on this. Like I feel like the pain of losing someone that I love very much, but then there's also like all this amazing things that like these gifts that are coming. And I think that changing my relationship with alcohol has opened me up to the gifts of life that I think I would have just missed.
Mm. Yeah.
I'm paying attention.
Yeah.
Like I'm paying attention to these moments that feel insignificant but are actually like gifts, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So quit my job, managing this experience of grief, like we're renovating a house from the 20s. It feels like
Oh,
it's
fun.
crazy, like it's so it's I think that the opportunity is for a wider range experience of life that actually creates more fulfillment.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I have these questions that I like to ask towards the end to every guest. Before I bring those in, I would love to know if there's anything that you wish I would have asked you about any of
Mm.
the topics that we brought up. Anything that you kind of maybe came here really wanting to share.
No, I don't think there. I didn't have an
No?
agenda.
Okay,
So yeah.
cool. Yeah. All right, you're welcome. So the first question is, what does self-love mean to you?
Self-love means that I catch myself in the moments that I'm in extreme judgment of
Mm.
myself or other people,
Mm-hmm.
and I can offer myself compassion for
Yeah.
just being here. Self-love is reminding myself that I am a human. More
Nice.
often.
That's an answer I haven't heard on this podcast yet.
My brain likes to like be lots of imperfectionism and stuff, and so for me, self-love is like, you're human. Oh, you're human.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very relatable. I love that. So, and then what makes you feel the most grounded?
Like an activity.
An activity, a person. Oh,
I know it is.
okay. What is it?
When I'm not trying to control other people.
What are you doing when you're not trying to control other people?
I am in myself. I'm in trust of the universe and like God's influence in someone else's life.
Uh-huh.
I am not believing I have to rescue anyone.
Yeah.
I am in compassion for them having a human experience, even if my brain thinks I know better,
Yeah.
you know? So it's like when I'm grounded, I am staying in my own lane,
Mm-hmm.
and not trying to control everything for
Yeah.
everyone. And by control, I also mean like rescue and think I know, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
like my favorite sentence is like, I don't know.
Yeah, that sounds very grounding. Just like surrendering, like letting it go.
Yeah. And I think there's actually this thing that I realized recently where it's this difference from being like unattached,
Mm-hmm.
to being like hyper controlling. There's like this healthy middle,
Mm.
you know, that I still am like navigating,
Mm-hmm.
feels really good.
Very
It's
nice.
newer for me.
All right, the next question is, what's your favorite part about being human?
Oh, my favorite part about being human. The answer is like the cookies. Like
The
getting to
cookies, I
taste,
love that. Yeah, cookies are great. I love that
like,
cookies exist, especially homemade
like,
ones.
oh my gosh. Like just getting to taste cookie, like just getting to taste, like I think that's like
Mm,
one of my favorite senses is like, just getting
yeah,
to enjoy, like I
yeah.
get to enjoy this. Look at me, I get to enjoy this cookie. I get to
Mm-hmm.
enjoy this delicious thing. Like, um, so maybe like the opportunity to enjoy.
Mm-hmm. So are you a big foodie?
No. So
No?
like I'm not honestly like I'm like a, oh my God, what's the best burger? I need the best burger. Like I want the best ice cream sandwich. Um, I spent all that time in the alcohol industry and I got to call on some of the most amazing restaurants in Atlanta,
Uh-huh.
and I really got my experience in all those restaurants. It's
Mm-hmm.
like I love going out to dinner, but I kind of also don't care anymore.
Mm,
Like
yeah.
I'm happy like the vibes of places. Like I
Mm-hmm.
love going like the aesthetic is like it's like anthropology threw up everywhere. Like that's what I like. But I also like I'll take the burger here.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? Yeah, that's me.
Yeah. Cooking at home is in my opinion a lot better.
It is. I
Especially
always
like I don't know how behind the scenes you were at a restaurant, but I've seen some things that happen in the
Yes,
kitchen.
yes. I
And
worked
it's
in
like
restaurants, yep. All through college and grad school, I worked in restaurants, so I know that can be some gross stuff. But even with that, I'm like, there's can be some gross stuff at my house too. Like cats walking or kids doing stuff. But I do agree, like especially with you know, the cost of food these days. I'm like,
yeah.
I can make this
Yeah.
at home, and it's just as good, if not better. And I know all the ingredients are quality ingredients.
Yeah, especially when it's like Italian food because like spaghetti and meatballs is like so cheap to make at home, but go to a restaurant it's like $30 a plate.
Are you Italian?
No, I'm not Italian. My first name is Italian, but I'm not
It is.
Italian. I'm
Okay.
German and Greek.
Okay. Oh, I'm German too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. One more question, and then I'll ask about where people can find you. And then once we stop hitting record, I want to hear about you being German. So, what is your favorite part about being a woman?
Oh, hmm. I mean, I know it's not just women that get to do this, but I just love like the getting dressed up and makeup and hair and all of it. Like, really
Hmm.
getting to be in my razzle dazzle. Like, love that so much. Like, you talked about my nails earlier. It's like, this is this feminine aspect of me that I love, like the lipstick, the hair, the outfit, the shoes. I love it all.
Yeah.
And I know it's not just for women, but like that's what's coming alive for me right now.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fun. That's like a fun way to play with art and like make your body the art and make your like
Yeah.
embodiment the art. Yeah.
Yeah.
Super
Oh, I
fun.
love that.
Yeah, I kind of grew up very interested in fashion because I play with
Mm.
Barbies and like my mom is a total glamour lady and I studied fashion design. But I had kind of like an unhealthy relationship with that. And it
Mm.
wasn't until maybe 4 years ago where I started seeing the way you dress and the way you do your hair and stuff as an embodiment practice. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And it
Yeah.
like changed my perspective a bit about it.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I love how you said that. So beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you. So, for everyone listening, where can they find you, find out more about you, and work with you?
Yeah, the best way to get in contact with me or to get to know me more is through Instagram. And I'm at the Jennie Jeutcher. And I guess you'll put in show notes like how to spell
Yeah,
that, or should I
I'll
spell
put
it?
in the show notes. Yeah.
Yeah, how to spell it. I don't always have everything on Facebook, but Instagram is really it. Like I don't have a website, and you can book a consultation call with me if you want to learn more about how I work with my clients and part of
Hmm.
my process. And that's the best way.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This has been great.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Openly Spoken. I know that there's an abundance of content online, so I really appreciate you giving me your ears today. If this episode shifted something for you, please share this with a friend and slash or write us a podcast review if you're listening to this on iTunes so that more people can find this. If anything shifted for you from this episode that you want to have a conversation about, I would love to hear from you. Just send me a DM over on Instagram at selfexpressbabe, and that is in the show notes. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.